War never changes. Oh! Oh my god. Stories from times of war are often told only by those who survived. Many epics of the past involved great nations plundering others for resources. But when these rarities hold the destructive power of global fallout, there is but one hope for survival. Hide. In the year 2077, for just 2 short hours, Earth became hell. But those who escaped into an underground technological vault hoped to wait out the horrors that followed. Inside Vault 13, 84 years pass without a single complication, but life for one of its occupants will change forever. Lawrence, a tall white man, has spent his whole 34 years of living inside Vault 13. Had the Great War not occurred, the randomness of life would have led to an intelligent and charismatic one, possibly even to go on to become a diplomat. But instead he's awoken by his elder, the Vault Overseer. This respectable old man admits to Lawrence that Vault 13's water purification chip has died and is too advanced to replicate. Lawrence alone is Vault 13's only hope to find a replacement within the estimated 150 days of remaining supply. The Overseer recommends the first place to search is the only other known vault, Vault 15. As the alarm blares and the vault door opens, Lawrence becomes the first dweller to step foot outside in 8 decades with nothing but a blue vault-tec suit and a Pip-Boy. The first things he sees upon exiting are a dark cave and a skeleton at his feet. Searching through its remains, Lawrence takes what he believes is necessary for his survival in this dastardly new world controlled by God.
The God of 1997.
Specified window is not a game. That is interesting that it doesn't qualify this as a game. Okay, I know that it's old. It came out in 1997. The world of Fallout and the stories of the nuclear Power Rangers each have their own quirks and governing bodies that can be referred to as gods. The first god you'll meet is an entity of 90s RPGs. This particular game will be the most stunted due to the fact that I spent the first 9 hours of the total 23 I live streamed just learning how to play without instructional guidance. When this game first came out, it gave a manual that you're supposed to know how everything works. Like this little shit down at the bottom of the screen, everything is supposed to be explained. It took me even longer to realize I had to zoom in, and it looked like this for most of the streams. And it's supposed to look like this. For posterity, yes, I know that there is an archived version online, but do you really think that this idiot could have sat through that? I've been streaming for about 40 minutes. I have yet to leave the first area. I also don't think that chugging an energy drink before playing this game specifically was probably the best idea, because now I'm like... For a quick breakdown, Fallout is a game built on grid-based walking, using your character's special skills to survive and a limited number of actions per turn. But the problem with Fallout 1 is so much of the gameplay surrounds combat and obtaining experience from random encounter fights. Surviving alone on the first try is nigh impossible. One can use skill-altering drugs called chems to aid in survival, but even with boosted stats, if your character can fail, they will. Oh my god. How? How? I have 50% chance. I missed 4 times! 5 times in a row. 6 times. I have missed 7 times in a row. Holy shit. And especially with a world filled with guns, don't expect that to get too far. I fucking missed 90. How many times have I missed a 95? Oh my god! By some miracle, Lawrence manages to escape the swarm of cave rats, and for the first time in his life, he sees the natural blinding light of the sun. With only the knowledge of Vault 15's location, Lawrence walks east across the desolate wasteland. Along the way, he stumbles upon a village surrounded by an adobe wall. He is greeted at the entrance by a man named Seth. He calls his peaceful village Shady Sands, but they're plagued by rad scorpions, killing off their livestock, and raiders killing them. Seth asks if he would lend a hand in either stopping the raiders or aiding in the development of a rad scorpion antidote. He says talking to their leader, Aradesh, in the large house is a good idea. Lawrence then turns to meet the greeter with a nice smile, Katrina. She tells Lawrence helpful information about healing injuries and acquiring useful tools via bartering with others using old discarded bottle caps as currency. Katrina tells Lawrence about her past life, leaving a vault and being rescued by the patrons of Shady Sands, including Ian, a recovering guard. Lawrence then asks about the vault's whereabouts, and she tells him more about Vault 15. Entering a nearby building, Lawrence sees a short, stocky man who introduces himself as Ian, a guard of the merchants of the Hub. He says despite his injuries, he can still travel to the Hub, or Junktown in the south, but calls Shady Sands his home. When Lawrence asks Ian about the raiders, he tells him about the 3 groups who've attacked, the Khans, Vipers, and Jackals. Asking more about the rad scorpion problem, he tells Lawrence about their nest and powerful poison. Lawrence then asks if Ian would be willing to join him along his journey, and Ian agrees, but only if he has 100 caps for his services. Lawrence pays him with the caps he received from Katrina, and Ian joins his party. Entering the largest house in Shady Sands, Lawrence meets an older robed man, Aradesh, who inquires about Lawrence's business in town. Lawrence tells him about the fate of Vault 13, and Aradesh says he's willing to repay a favor if he can help Razlo develop the poison cure. Lawrence agrees to help Aradesh and Shady Sands. On his way out, he meets a young girl, who introduces herself as Tandy. Lawrence calls Shady Sands a safe town, much to Tandy's boredom because she has never left town before. When the two part ways, she thanks Lawrence for telling her about the outside world. With Ian at his side, Lawrence enters the Rad Scorpion cave and clears out the massive arachnids. Lawrence then brings a severed Rad Scorpion tail to Razlo's lab, and with it is able to produce a poison antidote. Afterward, Lawrence goes to report his victory to Aradesh, but he's in disarray because his daughter Tandy is missing. He believes she was taken by one of the raider clans and tells him to speak with Seth, who will know more about them. Seth is also panicking over the disappearance of his girlfriend, Aradesh's daughter. Lawrence asks where the raiders' camp is, and Seth points to the southeast. Running over to the raider settlement, Lawrence and Ian begin shooting at the raiders, guns ablaze. The raiders are so ill-prepared that even their equipment fails them. Diana critically missed and her weapon destroyed? What? Once inside the compound, they walk in on the leader of the raiders, Garl, having his way with 2 bruised women. Lawrence blasts Garl with his shotgun, don't ask where he got that, killing him, and finds Tandy locked in a cell. He manages to pick the lock to her cell and escorts her back home to Aradesh. Tandy's father graciously thanks Lawrence for saving her and gives him 500 caps as a reward. While wandering to the east, Lawrence meets a traveling merchant. The two exchange pleasantries, goods, and knowledge of the wastes. From this man, Lawrence learns about the City of the Dead, Necropolis, a town inhabited by ghouls, the unlucky descendants of humans. Continuing east, Lawrence finds himself in front of a small shack. From Katrina's explanation, Lawrence finds a small manhole and ladder leading to a small cave underground. He sees the 10-ton door to Vault 15 lying on the ground, and walks in to see it's become infested with mole rats. Scouring the main floor, Lawrence finds the vault's monitors and ventilation to be damaged beyond repair. Eventually finding the elevator shaft, he discovers it is also not functioning. With a rope acquired from the people of Shady Sands, Lawrence shimmies down the elevator. On the bottom floor, Lawrence determines the vault fell victim to a sudden cave-in, and he can see decayed skeletons beneath the rubble. He discovers the cave-in has also taken out the command center, leaving no way to access Vault 15's water chip. Without an idea of where to go next, Ian takes Lawrence to Junktown. The entire town is ensconced by a wall of busted cars. Immediately upon approach, the guard standing at the entrance instructs them to keep their weapons holstered unless attacked. Putting his pistol away, Lawrence follows the order, only for the guard to tell him admission to Junktown isn't permitted at night. Waiting outside the perimeter until morning, the guard allows him to enter. Asking more about Junktown, he informs Lawrence of his employment with Killian Darkwater, a man who wants to keep the town orderly. He says a certain fat man also runs Junktown, but through other means. Walking into the general store, Lawrence meets the mayor, Killian Darkwater. When Lawrence introduces himself as a vault dweller, Killian doesn't believe a word. But when the two finish talking, the door is burst open by a man with a message. Somehow, he survives this. Lawrence follows the assailant to a casino with a spinning neon sign that reads Gizmos. Walking past roulette tables, Lawrence finds himself in front of a large, bald man. In a low, grumbled voice, he demands Lawrence to
Sit down.
We got some business to discuss.
Gizmo then offers Lawrence a job to take Killian out permanently. Asking how much he's willing to pay, Gizmo says 1,000 caps will be given after delivering Killian's dog tag necklace. As Lawrence walks out the door, Gizmo's parting words are,
Don't cross me. I still got the kneecaps from the last one who tried.
When he returns to the store, Lawrence tells Killian about Gizmo hiring him to kill. Killian says the people of Junktown would kick Gizmo out of town if he had solid evidence, but the only way would be a confession directly from Gizmo's gob. Killian then asks if Lawrence would mind wearing a hidden wire. Holding out the wiretap, he says he'd reward Lawrence with anything from his store, free of charge. With the wire hidden, Lawrence returns to face Gizmo, and when Gizmo demands to see Killian's dog tags, Lawrence feebly says he lost them. Detecting Lawrence's attempt to lie, Gizmo threatens him.
Until you've offed Killian.
Okay, he's said the name. With Gizmo's voice recorded, Lawrence reports back to Killian. After listening to the tape, Killian says Lawrence is welcome to choose from his collection, and Lawrence picks out a set of combat armor. Killian then tells Lawrence he plans to send his men to kick Gizmo out, and he's welcome to join his guard Lars when the time comes. With some spare time on his hands, Lawrence walks around Junktown and finds himself in a doctor's office. The doctor introduces himself as Dr. Morbid, gives Lawrence a once-over, says he's in perfect health, and holds out his hand for payment. Lawrence asks why he has to pay even if he didn't receive care, and the doctor says he'll pay one way or another. Reluctantly, Lawrence hands him 10 caps and walks out. Still walking around town, Lawrence finds a modest-looking bar called the Scum Pit. But the moment he walks in, Lawrence is shot at. After dealing with the unruly patron, Lawrence talks to the other bargoers. Neil, behind the counter, says besides his bar, his most prized possession is his late wife's urn. A performing musician, Ismark, tells Lawrence about all the places he's performed in. This includes new places like Adidam and for a group called the Brotherhood of Steel. When Lawrence asks him more about the Brotherhood, Ismark warns him not to find them unless he's with a caravan. Then he meets Tycho, the Desert Ranger. Don't ask why it's nighttime now. As the two exchange words, Gizmo's name is brought up, and Tycho asks to join Lawrence's party. Upon exiting the bar, Lawrence comes across a growling dog, but when Lawrence holds out a treat, man and beast form an inseparable bond. Lawrence then calls his new friend Dogmeat. When Killian's team is ready, Lawrence joins him and Lars to confront Gizmo. Seeing Killian's face, Gizmo is the first to pull the trigger. Bullets fly in all directions, but when Gizmo's forehead hits his desk, the fighting ceases. Lars then hands Lawrence 500 caps as payment for his help. Walking south, Lawrence encounters a group of policemen who say they're from the hub. Setting foot into town, Lawrence learns why it's referred to as the City of Trades. In just a couple of hours, Lawrence meets a slew of colorful characters. Dimitri here immediately offers him a job with his company, the Crimson Caravan, because he looks strong. Lorenzo Giovanni of the Friendly Lending Company, while regarded as a mobster ripoff artist, tells Lawrence about the Children of the Cathedral, who've given a vow of poverty, all while their leader Morpheus lives in luxury in the Boneyard. He also meets Bob, the owner of Bob's Iguana Bits, who tells Lawrence about the water merchants, the people who control the hub. In the gun store, he meets Beth, the local gossip. She advises him to stay away from the Maltese Falcon, its owner Decker, and his lapdog Kane, because he had his last owner cleaned. When Lawrence asks about the water merchants, she tells him how they control the hub's water supply after seizing ownership of the water tower, but were later coerced into signing a treaty to limit the price of water. Looking for the water merchants, Lawrence finds himself instead in a small church and approaches a cloaked woman. She yells at Lawrence for disturbing an elder of the cathedral. When Lawrence asks to learn about the cathedral, she asks if he's interested in converting. She says the cathedral offers Lawrence the chance to fix the world, but any who oppose them will suffer a terrible fate. Ian then points Lawrence to the water merchant's main building, and Lawrence asks the master merchant if they possess a water chip. The merchant tells Lawrence that he won't find one in the hub, because they're useless outside of a vault or necropolis. Lawrence asks him why Necropolis is the exception, and is told they refused to establish trade with the water merchants. They believe Necropolis must have a purifier, because if they didn't, their kind would have died out long ago. The master merchant then asks if Lawrence would like them to make a run to Vault 13. Asking how much it would cost, he's met with a price tag he cannot match. Looking for work, Lawrence talks to a group of caravanners who say they deliver to everywhere but Necropolis and a place called the Glow, but can't recently. When asking around for more information, Deputy Fry says that many caravanners have been going missing, and the Fargo traders are offering a reward for information. At the Fargo traders building, Lawrence meets Butch, who wastes no time asking if he's there for a job. Lawrence asks if he has any leads, and Butch goes quiet. A rumor has spread that a Deathclaw is the reason for the disappearances. When Lawrence asks him about the Deathclaw, he says Beth would know more. Returning to Beth, she begins to gossip about the missing caravans being the result of the Brotherhood's human sacrifices. Instead, Lawrence asks her about the Deathclaw, and she calls it an evil remnant of war. A 20-foot-tall demon with teeth as big as your arm. I did not get that sense of scale in Fallout 4. Lawrence asks if she knows where it lives, and Beth tells him the only people who have ever seen one and lived are an old mutant named Harold and Slappy the Old Coot. They both live in Old Town, the eastern part of the hub. Walking over to Old Town, Lawrence finds a man whose skin is green and peeling. He asks if Lawrence can spare some caps for a mutant in need. Donating $25 in caps, the mutant thanks him.
You know, if I could clear the gunk out of there, you just might find a tear in old Harold's eye.
Lawrence asks Harold to tell him about his life, and he says it's a long one. His vault was one of the first to open after the Great War, but doesn't remember where it is now. He lived as a trader, but it was hard being attacked by mutants. He says Richard Gray, a doctor, is the only reason he's alive today. When he and his team traveled northwest, they found the Source, an old military base filled with mutants. It was only Harold and Gray left in the Central Core when a freak accident sent Gray into a vat of acid, and Harold passed out. When next he woke, he was outside in the Wasteland, and his body had started to change. Harold thanks him for listening to his story and asks how he can help him. Lawrence asks him about his knowledge about the Deathclaw, and Harold says it's like a big armored man with spikes and claws, but it's fast too. Asking if it has a weakness, Harold thinks the eyes might be it, but if he locks eyes with one, he'll be hypnotized. Outside of Harold's home, an old man walks around in circles and rambles to himself. It's Slappy. When Lawrence tries to talk to him, Slappy just stares at the moon. But when Lawrence mentions the Deathclaw, Slappy asks if he wants to see one. Nodding, Slappy takes him to a cave. And once inside Deathclaw Cave, Lawrence can see empty eggshells, and deeper in, spots a large orange lizard standing over a dying mutant. And just by looking at it, Lawrence sees his life flash before his eyes. Hit for 30! Between the eyes, please. Nope. 95. But I do know that it's... there are weak spots. Go for the eyes. Eventually, after dealing 226 points of damage with armor reduction, Lawrence successfully slays the Deathclaw. As Lawrence approaches the dying mutant scout, he doesn't remember who he is or where his brothers are. He shakily hands Lawrence a holodisc, covered in blood. Asking if he remembers where he came from, the mutant says northwest in search of primes. In his dying breaths, the mutant calls out to his master. Lawrence loads the bloody holodisc into his Pip-Boy and reads the transcription. He reads a series of messages from the scavenger team about capturing caravanners and sending them back to base for processing. The last message mentions the possibility of capturing the big, fast creature for the master. Returning to Butch, he's left speechless about learning Lawrence killed the Deathclaw, and after showing him the mutant's holodisc, Lawrence is paid 800 hub bucks. Still looking for odd jobs, Lawrence meets Irwin, a man whose home was stolen by raiders. And they also killed his donkey, Pugsley. Lawrence goes over and talks things over with the raiders, and tells Irwin the good news. He can't pay in caps, but he does give his powerful rifle pistol as thanks. While looking through some broken buildings, Lawrence finds a staircase that leads to a basement lined with booby traps. Deftly avoiding them all, Lawrence enters the last room, and finds himself in a secret speakeasy, and is welcomed into the Circle of Thieves. In the back, Lawrence meets Loxley, who doesn't sound American.
Bloody fine job making it through the defenses, mate.
He wants to tense Lawrence's thievery and hands him a set of lockpicks. Loxley is sending him to steal a necklace from Darren Hightower in the ritzy part of the hub, the Heights. On his way over, Lawrence is stopped by Kane the Maltese Falcon. He says he knows Lawrence is the person who popped Gizmo, and his boss has a similar job for him. Escorting him to the basement, he meets Decker. His job? To find, hunt, and kill Darren Hightower's family. Finding the Hightower estate, Lawrence greets George, the door guard. He lies to George about having an appointment with Hightower and is allowed in. Sneaking around, Lawrence finds a strongbox and picks its lock. He finds a valuable necklace and puts it into his pocket. Lawrence then finds Darren Hightower and his wife in their bedroom. Lawrence introduces himself and completes his contract.
My name? Death.
Making a stop at the Circle of Thieves, Lawrence gives Loxley the Hightower necklace, and as a reward, Lawrence receives $3,000 and a set of electronic lockpicks. Returning to the Maltese Falcon, Lawrence is given 2,500 hubbucks and a new job: to kill Jane, leader of the Children of the Cathedral. For totally legitimate reasons, and not because he's guided to, Lawrence runs to the police station.
Police! Police!
He rats to the sheriff, Justin Green, about Decker's bounty contract while avoiding his own involvement. Decker just tried to hire me to kill some merchant and his wife. He tried to hire me to kill someone named Jane. Justin says Lawrence can join him, but Decker will put up a hard fight. And he might actually have a pretty decent weapon on him then. I'm gonna end my turn. Ow! You were hit for 6 instead of Kane. You were hit for 9 points. Kane used a stim pack. He used 2 stim packs. I was hit for 13. Holy shit. And oh, I was not hit. Okay. I am practically dead at this point. I was only allowed to shoot my gun once, by the way. To prepare for this, Lawrence runs over to the FLC, calls Lorenzo a rip-off artist, and walks away. Using his lockpicks, Lawrence cracks Lorenzo's safe room and obtains 2,033 caps and his collection of explosives.
What the fuck?
And with these newly acquired tools, Lawrence confronts Decker. And I throw this at him. I missed. It's so close quarters that it doesn't even feel like it's good to try and fight there. Unless I literally get the RNG of 90. There's an RNG of missing. And then there's an RNG of damage calculation as well. I know I can get more. I guarantee I could. Unless I am getting like 90 on that, but his armor is just that high or something. Oh! There we go! After killing Decker and his men, Justin thanks Lawrence for his help. He says all underground activity will cease to exist and hands Lawrence 1,000 more caps. Lawrence turns to the east and walks to Necropolis. What he sees there is a dark, broken city, teeming with ravenous ghouls, polluting the air with a smell of decay. Avoiding their attention, Lawrence slips into the sewer system via a manhole, and moving through the muck, he finds a small camp of ghouls who don't attack him. Lawrence asks their leader about Necropolis' water, and he says it's controlled by Set from above. He asks if the water comes from a water chip, and the leader says after their pump stopped working, Set's been purifying it with a water computer deeper underground in the north. The leader then informs Lawrence that if he takes the water chip and leaves them with a broken pump, every ghoul in Necropolis will die. Lawrence then asks if the water pump can be fixed, and the leader tells him they've tried, but they're missing the parts necessary. Lawrence then faces a moral dilemma. If I take this water chip first, and then come back to do the water pump, will I still be killing these people? Following the sewer system north, Lawrence climbs a ladder up and sees large, burly mutants skulking around. When he reaches the watershed, Lawrence comes face to face with Harry, the super mutant, who talks with a very limited vocabulary.
You not ghoul. I knew. Not fool Harry.
Harry tells Lawrence that he isn't supposed to be there and was ordered to take all non-ghouls to see the loo. Lawrence acknowledges Harry's demand and says he'll leave.
Okay. Have nice day.
Walking past Harry to the back, Lawrence sees the broken water pump. Climbing down a long ladder, Lawrence sees a vault inhabited by irradiated glowing ghouls. After talking to them, Lawrence enters the unknown vault. Looking around, Lawrence finds a working elevator and takes it to the 3rd floor. He then sneaks up behind a group of glowers, huddling over the corpse of a merchant, and doles out some vengeance. In the next room, Lawrence finds a functioning water processing computer and carefully removes the water chip. Doing so, Lawrence hears the sound of flowing water come to a stop. With his objective complete, Lawrence heads directly back to Vault 13's cave. Activating the terminal outside, the door to Vault 13 slides over, and walking in, Lawrence looks up at his overseer, sitting in his elevated hydraulic life, a machine designed to aid the overseer in his duties. Handing him the water chip, the overseer installs it. A few moments pass as the chip initializes itself, until the overseer exclaims in celebration. He commends Lawrence for saving the lives of Vault 13, and tells him to report all his findings in the library. Lawrence logs his adventure into the computer system, but after he's done, the overseer calls him back into his office. After reading through the reports, he's afraid of the mutants' unnaturally large population size. He hypothesizes that new mutants are being generated in a hidden lab. With Vault 13 at risk of attack, Lawrence is tasked with finding the lab and destroying it.
You have no idea how sorry I am to send you back out.
Stepping back outside the vault, Lawrence's pit-boy tells him he's become radiated from his exposure to the Wasteland. Not knowing where his lab is, Lawrence walks down to the Boneyard. Boneyard is a village fenced off from the remains of Los Angeles, now referred to as Addendum. He walks into the heart of town. It shows signs of gang activity, but Lawrence feels comfort coming from the library. No, that's literally what the game says. Once inside, Lawrence sees her. This green-haired punk of a woman and Lawrence begin talking about his life in the Wasteland, and she recommends talking to her chemist friend Miles for help. But just before he leaves, she asks to join Lawrence and his crew. She tells him she's an expert with throwing knives and submachine guns. Much like the God of 1997, Fallout has ethereal entities of grandeur, but not all of them are good. Some of them are devils. This woman, she's a wolf in sheep's clothing. And her name is Katja. You're better with throwing knives, in which you threw them all in your first engagement and didn't retrieve a single one, so I gave you this fucking spear. Why are you so content with throwing? I gave you the gun for a reason. Ow! You bitch! You told me you were good with SMGs. Why do I have you on my team? I'm good with throwing knives and SMGs. I throw away my weapons and I shoot you. Why are you on my team? You fucking bitch! Ian was hit for 47. Fuck it. I shot Katja. Are you kidding me? 95% chance to hit the intended target, a 5% chance to miss, and I just shoot my own. 8 points. You're using guns. Why are you afoot? Son of a bitch. Now I've got a splitting headache, and I'm irradiated. So if I walk away... and we'll reload to finish the turn. That is the most amount of damage anyone on my team has done. She can't do that to a fucking Deathclaw, but oh my god. Every single time we went up against that fucking Deathclaw, she would single shot. That's it. This guy, who is 5 miles away, your specialty is throwing knives and SMGs. You've done more damage to my team. I'm gonna lose my shit. I'm in the middle of losing my shit, but it is going to fucking... Why do I bother? Never mind. Tycho was killed. She did it fucking again! We literally had an innocent casualty just then. For no reason at all. Please. Ian was hit for 8. She did it again! With the devil at his side, I mean, Katja at his side, Lawrence looks for Miles. Exploring the east side of Adetum, Lawrence finds himself in Deathclaw Alley. Can you guess why it's called that? Avoiding their detection, Lawrence discovers the corpse of a merchant and pilfers some junk parts off of him. Pile of junk parts, a little bit of everything. That might be important for something. Turning back south, Lawrence finds himself in front of a large building that reaches the heavens. In more ways than one. This is the cathedral. For the children of the cathedral. Popping his head inside, Lawrence takes a look at the ornate interior, but they don't take too kindly to that. Back in the boneyard, Lawrence meets a man in a white smock. That sounds like scientist. He introduces himself as Miles. That smock makes you look like a scientist. What are you studying? My character is just as dumb as me. He tells Lawrence that he knows how to refill empty bullet casings, and his partner Smitty casts the new bullets. They sell these bullets because the hydroponic farms aren't working due to some missing parts. Lawrence then holds out the junk he found earlier, and Miles confirms them to be the right parts, albeit Smitty will need to repair them. Lawrence then finds a large muscular man who turns out to be Smitty, a local blacksmith. Handing over the junk, Smitty fixes them up for Lawrence, and he returns to Miles. He thanks Lawrence for helping them, and says they'll repay the favor. Smitty will help with certain guns, and Miles' armor. Nothing I can do with that type of armor. Damn it! How many of my guns can you actually do anything with? Thanks for fixing the farms. If you ever find yourself in a plasma rifle... I sold it! Elsewhere in the boneyard, Lawrence meets a rather normal-looking man. He is John Zimmerman, and also the mayor of Adetum. He tells Lawrence about his trouble with a gang called the Blades. Most recently, a member was sent in with a bomb strapped to his chest, but was killed by the regulators before he could detonate it. John says he'll give Lawrence 2,000 caps for killing the leader of the Blades. Suspecting something, Lawrence prods his motivation, and John confesses about the kidnapping and murder of his son. Hearing he found the body impaled to the gate wall, Lawrence accepts his offer. Back in Adetum, Lawrence enters the manor of the Blades without an ounce of resistance. He walks freely right up to the leader, a beautiful woman who looks troubled. She says her gang doesn't have any weapons to protect themselves and can't get access to the gun runners because Deathclaw Alley is in between. Lawrence then admits to her that he was sent on a revenge mission, and the Blades leader bursts out with anger that the regulators killed Josh Zimmerman instead, as she slams a holodisc on the table. It contains a recording of the regulators' radio on the night of the killing. Lawrence agrees to show John the holodisc, but she says it'd be better to get armed first. Passing through Deathclaw Alley, Lawrence spots a warehouse surrounded by a moat of glowing goo. The only way over is by crossing a rickety wooden bridge, but once inside, he meets a large man. Gabriel tells Lawrence about their poor business due to the Deathclaws, and when Lawrence asks why they don't just clear them out with their guns, he says they aren't fighters, just good machinists. Lawrence then tells Gabriel he'll help remove them, in hopes for their support. But, Lawrence is kinda stuck. How the fuck is little old me supposed to kill one Deathclaw, let alone 3? Unsure of where to turn, Lawrence returns to the hub and accepts Dimitri's job with the Crimson Caravan. Lawrence decides to pick the route heading to the Brotherhood of Steel. While en route with the caravan, raiders ambush them. But There are no death claws. Hours later, the caravan arrives at a small building protected by a fence and 2 heavily armored guards. Dimitri hands Lawrence 600 caps and says the Brotherhood are good people, despite their ill repute. A sign on the fence reads, "Leave immediately," but Lawrence chooses to ignore it. He speaks with the Paladin, who tells him the Brotherhood are a collective dedicated to preserving technology. "I think I've found my people." Lawrence asks him about their armor, and he calls it Powered Combat Infantry Armor Model T-51B, or Power Armor for short. The Brotherhood Knights are the only people to wear them. When Lawrence asks how he can join the Brotherhood, he points to his superior, Cabot. Turning over to him, Lawrence asks if he can join the Brotherhood, and Cabot goes to talk with the High Elder. When he comes back, he says Lawrence would need to complete a quest. Lawrence questions this. He says Lawrence must journey to the ruins of the Ancient Order in the south, and return with an item from inside. He says Lawrence can bring back anything because
It's high tech. There's things inside like you've never seen before. Oh, it's also radioactive.
When Lawrence agrees to the quest, Cabot is astonished. But after heading directly south from the Brotherhood of Steel, Lawrence finds nothing. Because a little birdie, who goes to a different school, told him Lawrence knows the ruins are located in the Glow. On his trek, all signs of life begin to disappear as he approaches the epicenter of the bombs. Before him is a huge chasm that leaks a large amount of radiation and heat. Standing so close, Lawrence is hit with a wave of nausea from radiation poisoning. And in that moment, something inside of Lawrence snaps. He's flooded with all of the horrible memories of how humans have let him down. With one goal in mind, Lawrence returns to Necropolis to fix their water pump. When he arrives, he finds it to be stormed by super mutants, but that's the least of his concerns, because for some reason, dog meat... What? I see a dog, he seems to be following you. What just happened? Once Dogmeat comes to her senses and they clear out the super mutants, Lawrence is able to find some random junk in the sewer. Resurfacing, Lawrence repairs the water pump, but his victory is rendered moot when he finds the streets of Necropolis are littered with dead ghouls. In one of the buildings, Lawrence finds a ghoul refugee hiding. He tells Lawrence about the super mutants slaughtering Necropolis with bombs and steam trucks, vehicles capable of moving without the use of Brahmin. And when Lawrence checks underground, he sees the ghouls below suffered the same fate. Lawrence and co. then spend the next 2 weeks walking along the coast, passing through the husks of civilization. But then, along the horizon, Lawrence finally finds the secret military base. It's a heavily fortified building inserted in the side of a mountain. Heavily armored and well-equipped super mutants and Nightkin stand guard. And they don't really want to talk. Waiting for the right opportunity, Lawrence sneaks past the front line while their backs are turned. When the guard in the back takes a nap, Lawrence searches through his belongings and uses his radio to trick the remaining guards into leaving. He also has a holodisc with the entrance's code on it. Like, physically written on it. Opening the door, Lawrence is greeted by 3 more super mutants and whisked to meet with Lou. In the lower floors of the scientific facility, Lawrence is greeted by a super mutant. But he's different.
It is so nice to see you.
The Lieutenant is a highly intelligent super mutant who wants exceptional humans to unite and evolve into more super mutants. He says super mutants are more advanced than humans.
We are highly intelligent and immune to disease.
Lawrence then asks how the super mutants were first created, and Lou explains that before the war, scientists made a virus called FEV to create the perfect human. And now they follow the word of the Master.
He was the first, you see.
When Lawrence asks where the Master is, Lou responds by saying he's preoccupied dealing with the children of the cathedral who treat the super mutants as gods. Lawrence then questions why he's unique, and Lou calls him and the rest of Vault-13 prime normals, humans left untainted from war radiation. Taking a moment to think, Lawrence comes to the conclusion that these are his people. Intelligent beings. Some of them. Turning his back on the humans who crossed him, and worse, the idiots, Lawrence accepts Lou's offer and tells him where Vault-13 is located. Lawrence too becomes a super mutant, and under the Master's command, hunts the worthless human race to extinction.